I try to imagine a fellow smarter than myself, and then I try to think, what would he do?
Charge up your axons, ready your receptors, and shift your lobes into upper beta phase. You are listening to Smart Drug Smarts, the podcast dedicated to helping you optimize your brain with the latest breakthroughs in neuroscience, nootropics, and psychopharmacology.
Hello and welcome to Smart Drug Smarts. I'm your host, Jesse Lawler, excited to bring you the fourth installment of our little podcast here. This is going to be our holiday episode. It's going to come out a couple days before Christmas, hopefully. So yeah, happy holidays to everybody. And we're going to have kind of a seasonal potpourri of topics that we're going to be covering on this episode. Everything from traditional smart drugs stuff to some really interesting brain optimization technology, which is not exactly smart druggy, but definitely something that you can't do without modern technology. If you wait around until the end of the episode, in our ruthless listener retention gimmick, we are going to tell you two things. One of them is going to be something stupid that I said a couple weeks ago, or at least something kind of naive that I was just wrong about and I want to clarify. And then the other one is something interesting that you may not know about the weightlifting drug Creatine, which a lot of people have heard of. Also has some strong applicability to our topics of interest on this show. Our main interview this week is Samantha Diovatis of a company called Zengar up in Canada. We're already on our fourth episode, and two of our interviewees have been Canadian. I'm not Canadian, so I don't know what this is all about, but I don't know. I guess Canadians like jumping on the phone this time of year because it's too darn cold to do anything else up there. But before we jump over to Samantha, let's go to the one part of this show which is absolutely guaranteed to be actual news because somebody is printing it other than me. That would be This Week in Neuroscience.
Smart Drug Smarts, This Week in Neuroscience.
Okay, so here's another fear-mongering article, at least, I guess it's only fear-mongering if you live in a major city with polluted air, but here's the headline: Smog found to reduce brain power. So they did a study, or rather, they looked at data from a study. This was a 2004 U.S. Health and Retirement study, and they looked at 14,000 men and women of ages 50 plus who'd participated in that, and basically a measure of their mental skills cross-referenced against the amount of particulate matter suspended in the air that they were breathing. Those numbers ranged from 4.1 micrograms per cubic meter on the very clean air to 20.7 micrograms per cubic meter on the dirtiest air. So a difference of about 5 times the amount of particulate matter between the good air and the bad air. And what they found was between that range, they see the effect of basically additional wear and tear on the brain equivalent to about 6 years of additional aging between the people that are breathing healthy air and the people that are breathing fairly polluted air. So for those of you that are sitting in traffic, sucking somebody else's tailpipe exhaust, consider yourself warned. Air quality is a good thing, whatever that means, face masks and extra omega-3s to counteract bad air. Again, this was measured in older people that have already been breathing, presumably whatever air they've been breathing it for decades and decades and decades. So it doesn't mean that necessarily if you go to a gas station, you smell some fumes that you're necessarily having your IQ drop like a rock, but it is something that adds up over the course of time. So something to be cognizant of, along with all the other stuff we talk about on this show.
Smart Drug Smarts.
So in decidedly less national level news, got a couple of podcast reviews this week, some 5-star reviews, which are very, very much appreciated. One of them says, great info, love the info and the controversial way it's presented. I guess that was last week's controversial drugging the guests episode, which got a lot of good feedback on, so I guess we'll be drugging more guests in the future. And 3EN Palm says, I'm interested in this subject and this podcast is really informative and well produced. Well, thanks. We'll try to keep that up. So with no further ado, let's go straight into the main interview with Samantha Diovatis of the Zengar Institute. The Zengar Institute makes a product called NeurOptimal, which is a neurofeedback machine. What neurofeedback is, if you're not familiar with it, that's okay. I was not a neurofeedback person who knew what that definition was myself just a couple of months ago, but I heard about it just sort of positive word of mouth from a couple of people that I know that had tried both the Zengar machine and a couple of other different related products and had really, really positive things to say about it. And it sounded a little weird to me at first, but hearing, again, these very, very positive first-person case study type things made me scratch my head and wonder about this. I have not tried a neurofeedback session myself, so I'm scratching around flying blind, but this was a really interesting interview with Miss Diovatis, and I want to get myself in one of these machines as soon as possible and really put my brain where my mouth is, so to speak.
I've been with the company for almost 10 years. I started out not really even that interested in neurofeedback or the product itself or NeurOptimal. I started out basically just doing admin. And then one day I traveled with the owners of the company. We had a booth at a trade show. They were going to do a demo in the booth, so they needed a brain just to do the demo on. So they asked me if I'd be willing to do it, so of course I was. And they ran me for that demo, and within, 10 minutes, this fog that I didn't even know I had in my brain just completely parted. So I was hooked after that. Yeah, so it was a really interesting story because to me, neurofeedback was sort of weird when I first started. It was something that other people did, and I didn't feel like I would need it, or, it wasn't something that particularly interested me. But now I believe in it, and I think that every single person on this planet should be doing it.
So did you originally think it was kind of snake oil, like it was just, kind of a fake thing, or did you just feel like for some reason it didn't sit well with you?
It was neither of those things. I knew that it worked because I had been working for the company. When I was younger, my mother actually was a neurofeedback provider. I knew that it worked, but to me, it just wasn't something that I could benefit from. I thought it was just really for people with problems, and that's not the case. I mean, everyone has a brain. Nobody's brain, I don't care who you are, but nobody's brain is functioning at 100%.
Can we take a step back, and for people that aren't familiar with what neurofeedback is, just kind of give us the elevator pitch. What is this technology?
Well, okay. If you can picture anything that is not going right in your life, so, let's say you're somebody that is having trouble focusing, or you get headaches often. All of those things are side effects of your brain not functioning at its most optimal level. So what neurofeedback is, what NeurOptimal is it's a system that can help bring your brain to that optimal level. So once you do start functioning more optimally, then those things start falling away. So the way that we do that is you're sitting in a chair, you're hooked up, you've got sensors on your head, you're listening to music, and the system is providing information to your brain on what it's just done. So the analogy that I like to use is, let's say you haven't looked in a mirror for a couple of years, and you think you're walking around all nice and straight, okay? Finally, someone actually puts a mirror in front of you, and you notice that you're, in fact, all hunched over. The very first thing that you're going to do, without even thinking about it, is you're going to try to straighten yourself out. It's just normal, right? So it's the same thing for your brain. Your brain thinks that it's doing the best that it can for you throughout your life, but as soon as you put that mirror in front of it, you're hooked up to this NeurOptimal system, and it's providing information to the brain on what it's just done. So in fact, you're telling the brain what it is actually doing. Your brain then says, oh wow, all this time I thought I was doing so well. In fact, I'm not. Let me straighten myself out.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying. I hear the analogy. To me, like the skeptical response that I want to make is, I know how I should look when I look in a mirror, so I know how to fix myself. But like, why would the brain's having an image of its own electrical impulses in whatever way is sort of shown in the feedback be something that the brain knows how to react to?
It just does. Basically, as the person is sitting in the chair, there's music playing, there are little spaces in the music, that's the feedback. There's nothing conscious for you to do. Basically, it's every time there's a shift, every time the brain shifts and it starts doing something else, we're going to let it know that it's just done that. And the brain says to itself, okay, did I mean to do that or didn't I mean to do that? And then, if it says, okay, yes, I did mean to do that, then it'll continue with what it was actually doing. Or it can say, you know what, I'm actually sitting here in a nice, comfortable chair. I'm not about to get hit by a car, so I actually didn't need to do that. So let me just change the way I'm going. And it just does.
That's fascinating. Do you find that there's when people do repeated sessions that their brain is doing decidedly, more activity or less activity as it gets used to this feedback process?
The more sessions somebody does, if you look, there are some analysis features within the software. So if you look at those analysis features, you can tell that the brain is becoming more and more organized. And then, of course, over sessions and over time, people do start noticing shifts in their everyday life. Typically, within 6 sessions, someone should see some shifts somewhere. By a dozen sessions, they should really be rocking and rolling, and 20, 30 sessions. A lot of people find that it's adequate. That's a good number of sessions to kind of stop at. And then we've got other people that just continue, and they like to just do it regularly. So
one of the things I noticed, I watched a few of your videos, and I noticed that almost all the people were, in sort of the advertising videos were like 50 plus. They were older people. Is there a reason for that? Is there anything that's age dependent about it?
No, not at all. I think the videos that you watched, they are people that joined us at if I'm thinking of the right videos, they're people that joined us at a conference that we recently have. A lot of the people that were interviewed in those videos were people that have been using our system for a long time, so it only makes sense that they might be a little bit older. There are people that sort of are just starting out that buy a system, but it's a pricey system, and a lot of times it's something that someone might want to add on to an existing practice, so it could be just that people are a little bit more established.
So do you have any really young clients, or are there people that are starting their toddlers on this and keeping their brain squeaky clean from a young age?
Absolutely. A lot of the staff members here are doing that, as am I. I've got a 6-year-old that I started running about 2 years ago, and then I've also got some nephews too. One of them is 3 years old, and I run him.
How long do the sessions last?
Sessions are 33 minutes, and you can either listen to music while you're doing it, or you can watch movies or TV shows, or you can listen to your own CDs.
So if you're watching a TV show, maybe I'm understanding this wrong. I thought you were sort of watching a screen that's showing you some sort of visual representation, like a screensaver or something like that, of what your actual brain waves are doing. That's not the case?
It's not what your actual brain waves are doing. Basically, you're listening to sound, and then you're watching a visual. The visual is the least important part of the whole feedback process. If you want to lay back and close your eyes and just listen to the music, that's fine. You couldn't do it the other way around. You couldn't not be listening to the music and be watching the screen. So, a lot of times if I do have a child that comes in here, it might be difficult, especially if they're young, to kind of keep them sitting for that 33 minutes listening to the music. So I'll usually just pop in a movie, and the feedback comes through, the audio part of the movie. I know when I do sessions myself, I usually just lay back. I'll do them in the morning before I start work, so I'll just lay back and get the extra sleep that I was hoping for when my alarm went off that morning. And you can fall asleep as well during the sessions. Your central nervous system is still able to hear the information and process it and stuff. So when I run myself, I really feel like I'm pampering myself. It's a nice session.
How often do you do the sessions?
Personally, I'll go through my phases, but usually I'll try to do them 2 mornings a week. And I do find that I always do them in the morning before I start work. And I know that the days that I do the sessions in the morning, I know will be a good, easy day at work. I know that I'll be able to focus. I know that I'll be able to prioritize, just get everything done, and just kind of sail through my day. It's safe to run up to twice a day, so you could do it every day if you wanted to.
You say it's safe to run the machine, like it's going to overheat, or why would it not be safe?
No, to run yourself, to do 2 sessions a day on yourself.
Sorry, because you open that can of worms. Is 3 sessions not safe? Is 4 sessions not safe?
No, it's not, and I guess I shouldn't use the word safe. It's just, the more often you do it, the quicker the changes come. So if you were to do 3 or 4 sessions a day, nothing really bad would happen to you, but the changes would be pretty quick, and your brain needs some time to sort of incorporate all the information that it's gotten. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Better to sort of just give it some time, yeah.
Are there any known negative side effects of this? It sounds 100% awesome from your description.
Yeah. Well, I have yet to find them. Basically, no, there's nothing new that will ever pop up in somebody from doing neurofeedback using NeurOptimal. When somebody first starts out in sessions, something might pop up that they've already sort of had. So we like to, it's like when you start at the gym, okay? You might get sore muscles in the beginning. So if somebody had a certain thing, they might experience that, the first week or 2, they might sort of experience a little bit more of that certain thing, but it'll never be something brand new, and we've never known anyone to not get through to the other side as long as they carry on with the sessions. So it's not that it's a negative side effect of neurofeedback. It's really just the way that their central nervous system is reacting to the information that's being given. But it doesn't last long, and as long as you continue with the sessions, you will get to the other side.
Gotcha. So a lot of the changes that you've described, people feeling that, they're operating better in various aspects of their lives. It's all very subjective stuff. Has there been, any sort of study on sort of quantifiable hard numbers results of my reaction speed or my whatever is measurably changing as a result of neurofeedback?
Well, neurofeedback in general, there are a ton of studies that have been done on neurofeedback. NeurOptimal specifically, we've never funded any studies just because if we did, the results we didn't count it anyway. But we do have some of our trainers that have done research using our system. We've had some wonderful results with a team that did some research on some soldiers that had PTSD. So we had some wonderful results there. We've had some great results with people with sleep. There are a number, that we do have an Alzheimer's as well. We actually had a research conference this past February where people were presenting their findings. Everything was favorable. Really, in reality, as long as you can get your brain to function more optimally, then it just becomes more resilient, it becomes more organized. And
so what are some of those results as far as like, quantifiable stuff? Like not necessarily, hey, I feel better, I got a promotion, or, I feel better about myself. But like if I was like a sports clinician and I was telling my running back, hey, go get neurofeedback because you're going to see, something go from X to Y. Do you have any sort of numeric stuff like that?
Well, numeric, giving you cold, hard facts on how much better they're going to do something. I personally don't have that. There might be some sports people out there that do. But I can definitely tell you that, they would probably be able to focus better, they'd be more driven, probably able to perform better out in the field, they won't get in their own way. And it is, there's a lot of subjectiveness to it. Of course, there are analysis features within the software. You can, do the analysis and stuff and see how the brain has improved. But in reality, that's important. The reason why people are coming and sitting in your chair for sessions is because they want to change something in their life. So as long as they find that change is happening, then the numbers really don't matter.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if you could pop a placebo pill and feel great every day, it's like, who cares if it's a placebo? It's like, it's the effect that counts.
Right, but the placebo effect doesn't last. That's the difference between the two.
So what is some of the differences between Zengar's NeurOptimal technology and other competitor neurofeedback devices?
So what the traditional neurofeedback method does is someone comes to see them for the first time. They have to do what's called a QEEG, which is basically they're taking a snapshot of the brain at that moment in time. They send it away, and then it comes back to them, and they have to figure out what they call a protocol, so basically a recipe on what they want to do with that person's brain. Basically if they think they want to, up the beta, lower the theta, work with the alpha, then they're basically working with one brainwave at a time. You're really depending on the trainer to know what they're doing and to come up with the right protocol or recipe for you, and it does tend to be a much slower process because you're working with one brainwave at a time. So the way our system differs is really we're letting the brain do all the work. So we're telling the brain what it's actually doing. We're working with the brain in real time. Okay, so you have to remember that protocol that the traditional systems are coming up with are based on that one slice of time that they took that snapshot of. I mean, who knows what could have happened to you on the way to their office? You could have narrowly avoided an accident, and then of course your brain's going to look a certain way. So we don't do any of that stuff. We don't need QEEG. We don't diagnose, and we don't treat. We are working with the brain in real time. We are providing the brain with information on what it's actually doing, and then the brain decides for itself what it wants to do, and it starts self-regulating. So as a client, you're not depending on the trainer to actually make the right decisions for what they want to do with you. You start the session, and your brain works it all out.
So how many different electrodes, or I'm not sure if that's the right term, how many different sensors are on the person's scalp?
There is one on each side of the head on the actual scalp, and then you've got two on one ear and one on the other ear. So it's 5 total.
What was the reasoning behind 2 on one ear and 1 on the other? It seems like intuitively, it seems like you would want like a matched set.
Yeah, no, one is just the ground. You've got one reference on each ear, and then you only need one ground for the hardware that we use.
How's the technology developing? You're saying that you've been with this company for 10 years. Where was it 10 years ago versus where it is now? What new developments are you guys working towards? How is this evolving?
It's completely automated now. So when I started 10 years ago, when I first started becoming interested in it and they were showing me how to use it, there were little boxes that you had to size throughout the entire session and all that stuff. Now everything's fully automated. I can start my client now, walk out of the room, and come back at the end of the session. We do consider ourselves the cutting-edge technology within the neurofeedback field. I can't tell you what's coming down the pike, but we do have some exciting things that are coming down the pike.
Well, that's even more exciting. If it's worth keeping secret, that's good news.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess one of the obvious questions is you guys sell a piece of technology to different practitioners, and then those practitioners set their own prices for the public. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes. We actually have 2 units that we sell. We've got one professional unit, which is, typically people that will purchase that one are people that will be using it in a business. But then we also have a NeurOptimal personal trainer, which is the same session that you would get if you went into somebody's office, but you use it at home. So the software interface is much, much more simple to use. There's no analysis features or anything in there. So it's like a treadmill. You hop on, you do your session, you get off.
Is this like a big machine, or is it something that you just have sent to you in FedEx?
No, we send it via FedEx. It's a computer, and then the software on it is really the value, and then there's some hardware that comes with it. There's a little box with Z-amp, and then sensors and paste, of course.
So what is the list price of one of these? If somebody hears this interview and they're like, I need to run out and buy one right now, what's it going to cost them?
The personal unit is $5,500. Those are all Canadian dollars. The professional unit is $9,500. You can go to zengar.com, ZENGAR.com, and go check them out. We also have payment plans. So if somebody, is really wanting one, but they have trouble scraping the funds together, then we do offer payment plans over 1 or 2 years.
Are most of the practitioners like psychologists, psychiatrists, folks like that, or are some of them just...
You don't have to be a medical person in order to buy our system, so we have a combination of both. We've got like medical, psychiatrists, doctors, that kind of stuff, that buy them. Then we've got more the natural, acupuncturists, naturopaths, those kinds of people. And then you've got like a mom that bought her system because she wanted to run her child, and then the neighbor finds out about it, and then the school finds out about it, and then one little article gets written, and then boom, we've got a full practice. So we've really got all walks of life of people that are doing it.
From what you described, I mean, for a $5,000 to $10,000 piece of technology that has all these benefits and that can benefit anyone with a brain, why is this not out there in the public more? Like, why is there not one of these on every street corner?
That is a great question. I think that in general, neurofeedback is still a pretty young thing. It's about 30 or 40 years old, I would say. But many people just don't know about it. But I do find, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I was talking to a coworker about this the other day, that 5 years ago, when somebody would ask me what I do and I would say neurofeedback, just sort of this blank look would come across their face. But recently, I've been finding that when people ask me and I tell them neurofeedback, I say, oh yeah, isn't that good for people that, and then they rattle off whatever thing that they've heard neurofeedback is good for. So it's starting to come out, and I think there comes certain times where the world is ready for certain things. I think we're in an age where people are just really interested in brain optimization. I mean, look at you. I'd say in the next 10 years, people are going to realize that actually this is a really, really cost-efficient way to make yourself better, and it's natural. People now they don't want to give their kids drugs. I've got a 6-year-old. There's no way that I would start putting him on medications without trying neurofeedback first. And I've got a number of friends and a number of clients who've brought their children in to see me specifically because of that. Maybe a teacher has told them that they want their child to go in and get assessed because they think that they're having problems concentrating. Well, the moms are coming to see me because they don't even want to go for an assessment because it doesn't matter what the doctor's going to say. They're not putting them on meds, so they want to try neurofeedback first. And for the most part, those children, basically after a number of sessions, the teacher just took that whole recommendation off the table. They were fine after that. It works, and it's drug-free, so why not give it a shot?
Smart Drug Smarts.
Okay, so that's the interview. Pretty interesting stuff, if I do say so myself. I'm very, very much looking forward to getting myself into one of these sessions and seeing what the effects are both during and after. I mean, it's I don't know. I find it. Part of me is just like, what? Really? That does something? But the proof is certainly going to be in the pudding. And as I say, I've talked with people firsthand that have nothing to do with this company or any other neurofeedback company that really stand on a stack of Bibles and swear on the results from this stuff. So I'm definitely curious, and I'm certainly willing to become a lab rat on something like that. And I mean, one of the great things about it is it's not chemicals going into your body. It's just sound. They're not pumping your brain full of waves. They're just reading the waves, then playing some audio back to you. So what am I talking about? I mean, it could be country music or something like that. There could be all sorts of dangers, but nevertheless, we shall persevere. Moving right along, as promised in the
Smart Drug Smarts, ruthless listener retention gimmick.
Today's going to be kind of a twofer. There's two things I want to throw at you, one of which is about creatine, and then the other, I mentioned that there was something I sort of made a mistake on a couple of weeks ago. I talked about a company within India that had gotten the right to produce a knockoff, or not a knockoff, but a generic version of the brand name Provigil drug, modafinil. Apparently, my highly placed sources within the modafinil procurement industry have told me that there are actually several other companies that have already had such approvals in India, so there's a lot of generic modafinil being produced there, and and this is more sort of a company's press release than something which is really going to move the market or change the costs. This highly placed source, who will remain nameless, says, what was more interesting was that modafinil went generic in the US in April in this year. I thought that would change a lot, but it didn't. New brands beyond the original Provigil were added, but the prices haven't changed. It seems like Cephalon has a lot of control. First, they managed to postpone the generic version multiple times, and now they still have control over the prices. After all, it's a billion-dollar drug. So, okay, that's the latest. We'll continue to get you more updates on crazy crap like that, and if I can get you any insider info, I certainly will. As for the other thing that I promised to talk about, creatine. So, a lot of you have heard of creatine as something which, bodybuilders and weightlifters use to jack up their muscles. And it's also known to make your muscle mass retain more water, so you both get stronger, and then your muscles also kind of get, more jacked looking because you're just becoming a little bit of a water balloon. But what it turns out is that creatine also has definite neurological benefits. They just did a double-blind, placebo-controlled study over 45 young adult vegetarian subjects. This was a 6-week study with people taking 5 grams a day. And they said after the 6 weeks, they did studies on both working memory and intelligence. They were using a backward digit span and Raven's advanced progressive matrices for those tests. And both these tests require significant speed of processing, and they found definite, measurable, statistically relevant improvements in the people that were taking the real deal creatine. So it seems to be official. Yeah, creatine, not just a weightlifting drug, definitely something for mental athletes as well. So as a result of this, I actually went out and bought some creatine for the first time ever, and I've been taking 5 grams of creatine a day, which amounts to kind of like a heaping teaspoon for the last 5 or 6 days now. So I'm just starting, let's see, 6 weeks from now would probably be about maybe episode 11 of this podcast. So if I'm sounding smarter by then maybe creatine has something to do with it. And if I'm sounding equally silly and stupid as I do right now, then maybe don't go spend your last dollar on creatine.
Smart Drug Smarts, the podcast so smart, we have smart in our title, twice.
So that's the show. The show notes for this episode will be online as usual at www.smartdrugsmarts.com, including links to anything that I mentioned here. I will be back next week at the same time, same podcast. One last podcast before the end of the year, and we'll be into 2013 after that. And as usual, I will have the same unflagging commitment to helping you fine-tune the performance of your own brain. So have a great holiday week, everybody, and I'll talk to you on the flip side. Bye.
You've been listening to the Smart Drug Smarts podcast. Visit us online at www.smartdrugsmarts.com and subscribe to our mailing list to keep your neurons buzzing with the latest in brain optimization.